Atlanta police are looking into allegations that one of their officers had sex with an Atlanta federal district court judge in her chambers.
Yeah, the Judicial Council reprimanded the judge. This was back in February. And last week, a committee affirmed the order. Good Day's Lindsay Tuman is live outside the federal courthouse. She joins us now with all the details. Lindsay, good morning.
Good morning to you, Buck and Natalie. And that judge does remain on the bench. According to a report, she initially denied those allegations, but later admitted to what happened. So according to the Associated Press, this judge had an extramarital affair with a high-ranking Atlanta police officer. The pair reportedly had sex in the judge's chambers. Law clerks reported overhearing multiple encounters, and security footage and logs also confirmed the officer frequently visited the judge's chambers in uniform around lunch. While the judge first denied the allegations, calling them outrageous, she later recanted and admitted to what happened. And a committee issued a private reprimand of the judge, which included writing apology letters. The committee also said she was unlikely to do this again and noted her otherwise exemplary service to the court. Now, the federal judge, that appointment is a lifetime appointment. So the only way that she would...
If you all aren't familiar with this, what flagged this on my radar is there's a viral clip going around where you can actually hear it going on allegedly in the judge's chambers, and someone apparently recorded it, and it was egregious, and it was loud, and it was wild. And you can go and look it up for yourself if you want to actually hear the raw footage, just here. But I didn't want to show it because I don't want to violate any guidelines on this platform. So you'd have to go look at that on your own. But it was wild. But I ultimately say that to say, why is it that public officials, when they do things like this, they just get a slap on the wrist? I don't understand. You know, what other job is there where it's not in the realm of being a public official? And I'll go more into depth of what I'm talking about. But what other career is there to where if you get caught having intercourse during the course of your work duties, where you still keep your job and you don't get fired? And in some careers and professions, you'll even be charged criminally. And if you're a judge, you work in dealing with the laws. If she was an officer, then she would be in violation of her oath. Didn't she take an oath as a judge, though? I'm curious. Now, funny enough and ironically, she was dealing with the head cop, allegedly the police chief, but perhaps he was not in his duties. I believe she was the one who was at work because it was in her chambers. But let's get the rest of the context, and then we can just take it from there, y'all. Before we get back into it, though, if you could like the video, I greatly appreciate it. Only takes a second, and it actually helps out more than you know. And also, if you could hype.
Do this again and noted her otherwise exemplary service to the court. Now, the federal judge, that appointment is a lifetime appointment. So the only way that she would be removed from the position is if she was impeached by Congress. No word on if that would actually happen. In the meantime, Atlanta police says it's investigating whether or not that officer in question is an employee of the Atlanta Police Department. We'll keep you updated on that as well. Reporting live in downtown, I'm Lindsay Tuman for Good Day Atlanta.
We really appreciate it, Lindsay. Thank you.
The caption says, judge had intercourse in chambers with senior police official during work hours.
According to this 20-page order from the chief judge.
Oh, she got receipts. She got paperwork. So this should give us more context, because that last news article didn't really give us much. They just gave us the broad scope of what's going on. I think they were pretty early.
According to this 20-page order from the chief judge over the 11th district. Now, the report does not name the judge, but for the last 2 days, I've been speaking with sources and going through public records to identify the accused after federal employees complained about hearing intimate noises through the walls.
These are serious allegations.
They're allegations of sexual encounters during work hours that a federal judge admitted to, according to this newly released judicial order. The report details an investigation launched after a complaint was filed against a federal judge last September.
I don't think judges are perfect. They're human beings, too.
Former federal prosecutor Doug Gilfillan says federal laws allow judges' identity.
Nobody's perfect. But again, in every other profession, you would absolutely, at the very minimum, lose your job if this happened during the course of your work. And even in not even just professions, dead end jobs, you would lose your job. In jobs that aren't as important and that haven't thrusted you into an authoritative position. So I don't understand why someone in a position of authority to be able to pass judgment on others wouldn't be held to a higher standard. I don't get that.
Timber.
I don't think judges are perfect. They're human beings too.
Former federal prosecutor Doug Gilfillan says federal laws allow judges' identities to remain undisclosed in reports like these to protect the integrity of investigations.
However, the law requires an order like this one to be made public if there's an imposition of discipline.
The report claims the judge had sex on at least 5 occasions over a 2-year period inside her chambers with a high-ranking police officer. Employees interviewed during the investigation described multiple incidents where they allegedly heard people having sex through the walls. One court clerk testified to hearing what was described as unsettling noises, kissing, and music coming from the judge's chambers.
Why should the everyday person care about these allegations?
The American legal system depends on honesty and truthfulness.
This investigative report did not identify the judge or the officer, but multiple sources confirmed to Channel 2 that federal judge Eleanor Ross and Atlanta Police Deputy Chief Kelly Collier were the 2 accused. In the complaint, the judge's employee said she attended a primary election victory party for a district attorney on May 21st, 2024. A source provided Channel 2 this photo showing Ross at that party. The order also says the judge presided over a hearing the following day. Channel 2 obtained federal court records showing Ross presided over a supervised release hearing on May 22nd, 2024. And regarding the officer, the chief judge wrote the officer has worked for the PD since 1998, later adding that the officer has held this role since 2025. Atlanta police records show Collier joined the department.
Yep, that's about right. He's been on the job for almost 30 years. That's when you stop giving an F. You start getting wild. You want to relive your glory days. So that's what's going on. Deputy Chief. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. You really can't make this up. These folks are grown. Just this man's police experience is dang near 30 years old. Just his professional experience alone is 30 years old. And yet, he made an impulsive decision like this. When you're over a squadron of officers who they have to be able to think clearly, use their head, assess situations and circumstances in a way where they're using good judgment at all times, because the smallest margin of error can either affect them and the department criminally and civilly. And so they have to use better judgment at all times. And they're in the most volatile of situations where they have to not only weigh making the right judgments with the implications and the liability that can come back on them as well as their agency, but they're dealing with much more critical situations in real time. And he made this judgment call willingly. That is interesting.
In 1998, and his LinkedIn profile reflected a promotion in 2025. That LinkedIn page has since been taken down. I reached out to Ross, but a representative responded with no comment. The chief judge has already issued Ross a private reprimand, and she agreed to write apology letters to her employees. She was also reprimanded for attending a political event, as federal judges are prohibited from participating in political activities. The chief judge said harsher discipline was not imposed because of the judge's exemplary service to the court, along with the fact the judge ended the relationship and accepted responsibility.
In some ways, this is a self-inflicted wound. And it just shows further distrust in the system by the public, and that's just not something that we need right now.
And Atlanta police provided a statement this afternoon saying it launched an investigation to determine if the person mentioned in the federal report is an Atlanta police officer. Now, we've attempted to reach out to Collier and have not heard back.
That's so interesting that you are somebody who is charged with enforcing laws and enforcing people to follow the rules, but yet you are a rule breaker. And every time you break the rules egregiously and knowingly, because you're supposed to have a higher view of the rules and of the laws, you're supposed to have the clearest view of that. And you're supposed to constantly be studying that and staying adept of that. But yet, it seems like you may be using the knowledge of that in order to break the rules. And it doesn't just mean the knowledge of the rules to break the rules, maybe even the knowledge of the lack of consequences, and then you're taking advantage of that. You have such a high level understanding of the law that you understand that I can do this, as crazy as it is and as reputationally damaging as it is, and they're still gonna give me a slap on the wrist, a reprimand, which is basically nothing when they say that they gave you a reprimand because of your exemplary service. But yet they said that they've been hearing y'all do this for weeks, and you just get a reprimand, which is basically nothing. I would say the biggest consequence out of this is the public exposure. And funny enough, like I said, there's a video going around where you can hear some hooping and hollering. You know, it sounds like sounds like somebody's getting tortured. And the only person that's going to actually benefit in that situation is that police chief. Because let me tell you something. Don't let that police chief have an Instagram page and that video is going around. Oh, that's great exposure for him. That's not good exposure for the judge. But for the police chief, you already know he's got the power, he's got money. And now we have this video of you screaming and hooping and hollering like that. Oh, he's going to get a lot of submissions within his DMs of people wanting to explore the hype, for lack of better words. That's crazy.
Now, they say it got so good to her that she was making all kind of noise in her chambers.
The caption says, they say the judge was so loud she got caught, but she also ... leaving a little mystery in there.
This federal judge who presides over elections integrity in the state of Georgia. Now, they say that it was so good that this judge was loud and screaming that her staff would have heard her. And it didn't make a lot of sense to me. I said, this woman has so much to lose. And upon doing research, I said she presides over fraud, public corruption, but also federal civil lawsuits, which include voting rights. So I'm just hoping that these people really make sure that they investigate thoroughly, because we need all federal judges in the good state of Georgia to make sure that everybody has a vote who is due one from being a citizen in the state of Georgia. You know, because as far as I know, I have never, and I've polled a lot of people, never seen a woman with so much to lose that would be in her chamber screaming to the top of her lungs for the D. But anything is possible, and we will continue to see. I just want them to make sure in the good state of Georgia that they don't first go to impeaching, and that they first go to teaching and making sure that every vote counts as we go nearer to the big one. I hope I'm making sense.
No, you're definitely making sense. And I could tell, you know, the whole time I was thinking, I was like, I'm going to give her credit for being somebody that I can tell is very intentional about the words that come out of their mouth and thinks before they speak. Because I'm paying very close attention, because this story is a little bit vulgar, and I don't want to get too vulgar, and I don't want people to do anything that will flag me. And so I could tell she was being very intentional with her words, like I tend to be. People say that I call it like I see it. It's levels to it. Trust me. Maybe one day I'll really open the floodgates, but not right now. But yes. So what she gave context into is the type of things that this judge oversees, which ironically is ultimately what we would expect. Holding people accountable. I think she mentioned fraud in there. But it's just hard because here's the point I was going to make earlier. The public officials, it seems like they only get smacks on the wrist for things that the average and ordinary person would definitely face consequences for. And I find that amazing that that is that way, because it really just shows you how much corruption there is. And here's what I mean. The rules get made from the start for the people at the top, for the people in the top positions. When you think about people who hold or who are public officials, which ultimately indicates they are government officials of some sort, and the government is the one who makes the rules of the game, of the world. And then they just so blatantly show you that, yeah, we're held to a different standard. Y'all, we don't care what happens to y'all. But for us, we have systems and fail safes where we can have a great time on this earth, on this planet, and we basically have immunity from all this other stuff. Even though, since we are the ones who have power, what you would think by conventional thinking is that you would be the ones who would be held to the highest standard. But it's never been so much broadcasted in our face that the people who are making the rules, the people who are leading this society, in a lot of cases, are the ones who ultimately can do whatever they want, and they don't have to answer to it. They don't get penalized the same way a normal person would. And I mean, it doesn't get any more egregious than literally, this is a judge. I say all that to bring it back to the fact that this is a judge. The name means they judge people in order to hold them accountable. But yet, when they do the same thing that they would judge someone else for and provide consequences for, they don't have to face any repercussions. So I find that very incredible, and it doesn't go unnoticed, at least in my eyes.
Do you hear that? Where is that coming from? I hear it. We better check on the judge. Let's check on the judge. Better check on the judge. Let's open this door. The judge is right behind this door. I want to make sure she's okay. Here we go. Judge! This judge, this is what she did. Same judge that sentenced Todd Christie. She was appointed by Obama. Judge, listen. Let me get my glasses on for this. Judge, listen. I get it. But you can't do it at work. You can't do it at work. Okay? Nobody could. Okay? Nobody could do this at work, including you, even though you're a judge. Right? You can't do it at work. You get fired or you get suspended or whatever. Okay? You can't do it at work. Now we learned, Judge. We learned. Now going forward, no more of this. No more of this. I said what I said.
Federal judge is still on the bench here at the courthouse, while Atlanta police say they have launched an investigation. The judge in the middle of this misconduct scandal is still on the bench here at the Richard B. Russell Federal Courthouse. The Judicial Council reprimanded the judge back in February for judicial misconduct. Last week, a special committee confirmed their decision. This all came to light because several of the judge's law clerks started complaining. The Judicial Council says in its report that the judge engaged in an extramarital affair with a high-ranking police officer. The Associated Press and Fox 5 have learned that officer is a commander with the Atlanta Police Department. The law clerks reported that the federal judge and the commander repeatedly had sexual intercourse in the judge's chambers during business hours within earshot of the clerks. The Judicial Council goes on to say when the judge was first asked about this, she lied and denied it, calling the allegations outrageous and baseless. But she later recanted and admitted to her involvement. The report.
Wait a second. What? Wait. Are y'all paying attention? Am I the only one paying attention? Let's go back. Let's make sure we heard what we heard.
She lied and denied it, calling the allegations outrageous and baseless. But she later recanted and admitted to her involvement. The report.
Did they just say that a judge who is sworn by oath lied and called it outrageous? So a blatant, bold-faced lie to the point that it was over-exaggerated and she called it outrageous and basically tried to gaslight, allegedly, to say, how dare you even accuse me of this? And then later recanted that and admitted to it. If a police officer gets found lying in court, they can no longer testify in court. And they're useless in court. If an attorney gets caught lying in court, they can no longer be in court and testify in court because their reputation is done. Their testimony no longer does any good. How can a judge lie and it be founded that they lied? They can even in their regular life or just during their duties at all. Attorneys, police, anybody who has court dealings where they have to speak on situations, they can't be caught lying. And she has people's lives in her hands. And yet she's able to lie and still keep her job. Lie on the record. I'm not talking about white lies in your personal life. I'm talking about you're lying during your duties. The same thing that you would reprimand somebody about if they lied in your courtroom. How can you do that? That's supposed to be an automatic thing. Because if there's no trust, then what do we have? And how can you move forward? How can she be credible on anyone's case anymore? And listen, I never want anybody to lose their job. I'm not an advocate of that. But this is a public situation. And so you can even remove her out of it. I'm just trying to understand, how was that possible for a judge to be able to lie?
It indicates the commander frequented the federal courthouse in uniform during lunchtime. A special committee investigated and interviewed 6 former law clerks, reviewed surveillance footage and sign-in logs, reviewed relevant documents, emails, and text messages, and affirmed the affair and inappropriate sexual activity did in fact occur. According to the Judicial Council, the judge was privately reprimanded and agreed to write 6 letters of apology to her former law clerks, forego service as a chief judge, and indefinitely refrain from serving on any judicial conference committees.
They said she was privately reprimanded. You know what the saying goes, right? Because it's people that had to hear that. It's people that was reporting that. It's people that had to deal with that in the courthouse. So I say that to say you don't get to reprimand her privately. The apology needs to be just as loud as the disrespect. And by that video, it was very loud. So it shouldn't be no private reprimand. She should be reprimanded in front of everybody, right? And she should have to apologize to everybody. Just being a little facetious. But I'm just saying that to say these are the extent of her consequences. She was reprimanded privately by who? By somebody that is on her team, in her inner circle. who's like, yeah, who's actually working with her during the reprimand to say, hey, this is all going to blow over. Give it a week. Look, I'll put here that I privately reprimanded you. Give it a week. It'll blow over. Don't worry about it.
Committee explained that it had carefully considered more severe sanctions, but decided against that because the judge corrected her false statements, ended her relationship with the commander, and had otherwise had a clean record and rendered exemplary service to the court. And this is a federal judge, which means this is a lifetime appointment, and the only way she can be removed is by Congress.
We'll just say that. They keep trying to talk about exemplary service. There's no other job where you can try to rely on your track record in order to avoid consequences when you do something this egregious. This egregious. The only field I could think is if you're actually somebody who is instrumental in bringing in massive revenue for a corporation. But even then, that don't mean you can just whip it out on a Zoom call. And then you ain't going to have to face no consequences for that. And they're going to trust you. So I just find it funny.
All right, guys, here's another chief of police and a judge in hot water. And are you surprised at this point? This is the third this week that I'm exposing on this page. The third police chief for bad behavior and a judge who is involved in it as well. If at this point in society you don't understand that the people running the show in society, in our country at least, and probably other countries, are the worst of the worst. They are bad people. They are not good people. They have no respect for anybody else. They're selfish. They abuse their power. And this is happening everywhere. And the biggest problem is that there's no accountability. In this case, the article talks about how the judge was reprimanded, but they don't tell you how. They don't tell you what the consequence
That's what I was noticing.
is, whether she's going to be held accountable or not. And the reality is these people should be fired. We talk about cops getting fired for stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Low-level cops, street cops. They want to bury these people. They want to put these people in jail. They want to ruin their lives, take everything from them. But look at what they're doing at the top. The people at the top should be held to the highest standard. We have this talk all the time about standards in terms of your job status, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think that everybody should be held to the highest standard in society, and we all should be doing the right thing. But unfortunately, that's not how society works. And individuals like this really should be held to the highest standard because they have a higher powered position. They have more ability to ruin people's lives and put them in jail, take their jobs, things of that nature. And they're doing worse. And there's no accountability held. None. They get to just resign or they get a slap on the wrist and you never hear about it again. And what happens? Does anybody really learn their lesson when that's the case? No. So society really needs to start exposing these people more. We need to start really requesting more accountability and stop allowing these individuals to manipulate you into thinking that they are great people, because the majority of these people at the top go on TV, they put on this act like they're great people, but they are the worst of the worst. All right, guys, here's another chief of police and a judge.
Man, he was a great person to close this video out with because he ultimately summarized and encapsulated everything that I had said over the course of this video. And exactly, I mean, really think about this. At every step of this entire situation that we reviewed, because we came at it from multiple angles, if we're just being objective, she showed horrible character for somebody who's in charge of judging people's character and their actions. She allegedly was doing this multiple times during the course of work. Wouldn't it be nice to get paid to have fun like that? To be getting on the clock, you getting public funds. If we're going to talk about food stamps, benefits, and government assistance and people abusing that, she's abusing that. She is getting paid from public funds to have fun. So someone who's in charge of judging people's character is using public funds, right? Misusing it in the form of getting paid while doing something insane. And then on top of that, which goes back to the character. Allegedly, she lied. And then they said she redacted that. You see how they keep like cushioning all of her bad actions and bad decisions with all these words? She was reprimanded. She lied, but then she redacted. What do you mean she redacted? Because then they showed the proof that they had camera footage. They went through her text messages. Did she lie and redact it? Or did she lie and then you showed her the evidence and backed her into a corner to where she had to admit it? But when you're cushioning around it and you're trying to still preserve somebody's image, it's almost like PR. Then you try to fluffen it up wherever you possibly can. And I would argue it's probably much more things that haven't come to the light and haven't been surfaced that we're still missing that will probably never be exposed because of the corruption, like he said. And then he made the great point as far as if this was an officer, a law enforcement officer, they would want his head. They would want his head if it was a law enforcement officer. But she should actually be held to even a higher standard than that, because on one end, she has more power, she has more authority, and she also would have more knowledge of what not to do. So she should know better, is what I'm ultimately saying, as well as she has more to lose. So there's no excuse. And no matter how many angles you come at this with, this is crazy. So I think, again, like I said, we covered it from all angles. That's an interesting thing that's going around right now, an interesting story. Y'all, we'll leave it there for today. If you could like the video, I greatly appreciate it. Only takes a second, and it actually helps out more than you know. And also, if you could hype the video. Hype is a new feature that YouTube offers where it helps smaller content creators like myself. And basically, when you hype, it actually pushes us to the extent that it pushes the larger content creators. So you just press the hype button, and it shows the points. And since I'm a smaller creator, a smaller channel, we actually get more points per hype, and hype was designed for smaller channels. So that's why we get more points. But if you run across a video and you don't see the hype button, then it's probably been 7 days, and hype usually vanishes after 7 days. So that's why it won't be there. So it's usually best practice on a newer video to just go ahead and hype while the iron is hot if you want to hype. And then also, if you want to become a member, you should see the join button on this video as well. And what becoming a member of the DXU family will come with is you would get a badge next to your comments where everyone will be able to tell that you are a member when you leave comments, as well as access to early content and access to exclusive content that is not available to the general public. So again, if you want to become a member, join buttons on this video. But until then, I'll catch you in the next video.